Hey everyone, this is Rachel Radner, and I'm here with two people today. One person is right next to me, Hubby Joe, and I'm also here with Christian Blatt, the one, the only.
They say three is a crowd, so I'll try and keep my comments to a minimum.
Yeah, and we actually might have four or five. If you happen to see dogs behind us in the hallway, they might contribute with a couple of barks every so often. But yeah, all right. So this was this episode. I mean, Christian, you and I were kind of talking about this before the show. There was a lot, but not the way that we got with episode 1 of season 2. So just Christian, what were some of your overall thoughts just about the whole, chapter 10, the passenger? What jumped out at you?
Well, I would say that there's some little things that jumped out that were fun. I mean, the first second that I saw a pair of X-wings, I was like, "Hello, all right." And then when Wedge wasn't flying one of them, I was super disappointed.
But Dave Filoni back as Trapper.
Yeah, I did like that, but that was cool. I mean, look, this is there's so many weeks where you feel like this show is so much a Western, which definitely the last one was, but this one sort of had that feeling as well. Like his horse threw a shoe and he got stuck somewhere and had trouble getting out. So I thought that there were some interesting things. They definitely amped up the wacky factor for Baby Yoda, but it was hard to not enjoy it.
At least we know about the eggs now. I don't know if you've seen this, but they accidentally Funko released a Baby Yoda. Oh my gosh, I always say baby Yoda. They released the child with eggs, and everyone was speculating about what this meant. At least we know what this means now.
Yeah, it just means that he's likely to open a dive bar one day where they have pickled eggs, and he'll help himself. And just a quick shout out, because in the chat I see that Daniel Drew is there. All he said is "woo," but you know what?
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so we've also got Hubby Joe here today, and so Joe, I just wanted to get we didn't get your opinion on the first episode, so just overall thoughts on episode 1 and 2.
The first episode was pretty cool. It kind of reminded me of the fight scene with Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport, with the secret underground fight club that everyone came to watch. The second episode, dragon meat looks pretty good. I will have to try that on an open fire.
Great. When Disneyland reopens, I think that they should start serving that at oh my god, I can't even remember what it was called. It's been that long since Disneyland was open, but in Star Wars Land they should sell the dragon meat.
Yes, that looked very interesting.
Absolutely. And I think for me, what really stuck out was, one, seeing Dave Filoni. I love that we got the Resistance back into this, because it reminds us what time period we're in. And I mean, we kind of already have little Easter eggs that remind us anyway, but when we see those, yes, no pun intended. But when we see the little, when we see the X-Wings and we see that era of, what these resistant fighter pilots are wearing, we know exactly where we are, that this is directly post episode 6. Like, we know what time this is. So I loved that. I love how we always, like, what we've always gotten with Mandalorian is a callback to the past with the high tech digital effects kind of thrown in there. But just for example, like even the child, the way that we get the reactions, and the way that he's kind of that he kind of reacts, like just even the facial expressions that we get, reminds me of what we would have gotten with Yoda in the original trilogy. And so I love those callbacks. I also love that Peyton Reed directed this. And for anyone who's not familiar with Peyton Reed, he was the Ant-Man director, as well as Bring It On and other movies, but Ant-Man. And that brings me to something I want to mention. Dr. Mandible, who is that ant-like creature. We've never seen him before. To me, it felt like a callback to Peyton Reed, and was really like addressing the fact that he's the Ant-Man director. Christian, I don't know what you thought about that in general, that opening sequence.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I didn't realize until the end credits when I saw Peyton Reed. I think that's when I saw his name. Maybe it was in the beginning, but I missed it. But I definitely didn't know it. But now that you're saying it, it's like, yeah, this is clearly like a distant relative of Antony from the first Ant-Man movie. And I mean, yeah, it's great when you see you get these level of directors. I mean, sort of the default is to have Favreau direct them, and he's great in his own right. But yeah, so that's fun. And yeah, anything that's part of the big Disney umbrella, bringing in Ant-Man. I think that was a lot of fun. But I didn't think about it at the time. Did you know that Peyton Reed had directed it when you saw the Ant? Okay, I clearly wasn't paying attention. I was. I'm going to guess that I looked down at my phone to see a map of the United States in the colors of blue and red. I'm just guessing that that's what I did. Yeah.
Could EC be involved in what you were looking at? Possibly.
Yeah. I thought that this was like, okay, this is the last chance I can look away from the screen for 40 minutes. And I looked away. So but that's on me.
I hear you there. And, we've all kind of been in that world this last week, election week, as it will be known as.
Great little fact from Daniel Drew right here. He literally just read that the spider thing was an unused Macquarie creature that was going to be in the Dagobah swamp. I love that.
So I actually have I have some factoids about that too. So for anyone who watches Rebels, it was from the Ralph McQuarrie concept art, but also in Rebels, we got to actually see those spiders too. Whether they're exactly the same thing, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But literally, after I watched this episode of Mandalorian, I went back to Rebels in season 2. There are multiple scenes where we get these spiders. And they have an official name. I have not seen it pronounced anywhere. So I'm just going to stumble and try to say it, but it's the Crickneck.
Nice.
Forgive me if I have mispronounced that, but in Rebels, I went back and they did not address the name of these creatures, but it was the same thing where when you look, they're in a cave, and when Rex is actually captured by the mother spider. And when the other crew of the Ghost go into this cave, they see the little, they almost look like eggs or something's buried. It looked exactly the same to what we got in chapter 10 of Mandalorian. So I would think they're the same thing. Dave Filoni.
That makes sense. I actually just thought it was an unexpected crossover with the great film Krull, but perhaps that's just me. And if you haven't seen Krull, do yourself a favor and don't watch it. Sorry, go ahead.
There's the only other thing I want to say is that there were a ton of random references in this. Not just with the spiders, but the last thing I want to mention, going back to Dr. Mandible really fast, when we see Motto, she's playing Sabbath with him, in case anyone didn't know, but also she calls him Zorak. And when I looked that up after the fact, because I didn't recognize that name, but I looked it up, and for anyone who might be a fan of Hanna-Barbera and Space Ghost, Zorak was one of the villains. And so people are speculating is that this means that in the Star Wars universe, Space Ghost is a legitimate show.
Space Ghost is canon. And for anybody that remembers on Cartoon Network, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, the late night talk show hosted by Space Ghost, and they also had something called Cartoon Planet. Zorak was very much a part of that, and an incredibly, it was a great, very funny, very early when Cartoon Network, let's put it this way. They weren't licensing any Star Wars properties at that point. This is years before they would have had Clone Wars. It was like, well, we own all this Hanna-Barbera stuff. Let's do a talk show with Space Ghost. And I did love that. I like that we've gotten Amy Sedaris in both of our episodes so far. I think that I like that she's part of our expanded universe.
Yeah, and the comedic relief we get with her too is just incredible. And I hope that we see her more this season, and she becomes more of a regular cast member that is more involved.
Let me just put it out there: spinoff.
Ooh. Or I would even settle if she gets her own book.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah. And I would let you read it and tell me all about it.
Absolutely. I will definitely do that. But speaking of Motto, the crux of this episode kind of comes down to when Motto introduces them meaning the child, and Din introduces them to, she's credited as Frog Lady. That is the name that she is given on IMDb. So, Frog Lady, Joe, this question goes to you. What do you make of Frog Lady? Do you trust her?
Yeah, not really. Especially when she tapped into the robot to get her voice through. She just sounded,
to Zero. Yeah, who was interesting because we saw Zero back in the episode season 1. We saw him on The Prisoner. Christian, what do you make of Frog Lady?
It's interesting because I was trading texts with our friend Zach Wilson, who was with us last week. And, he'll probably be on every once in a while. And he had very strong anti-Frog Lady feelings. He did not like the one-note character. I thought it was a little bit slapsticky. She was a little bit silly. I did like that she figured out how to communicate with him. I thought that was good. But it's like, lady, you just turned on the killer robot. You just think about that for a second. And I thought she was a little weird, though. I liked when they were running away from the spiders, and I'm just going to call them spiders. I'm not, good for you that you're trying to pronounce that.
Try.
I'm like, oh, this is great. I loved that. But taking that weird bath with her eggs, I was just like, all right. I'm
producing more eggs?
I don't think so. I think she was just
bathing them.
I think she was trying to keep them warm.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And by the way, Ivan Soto says Baby Yoda continuously eating the frog eggs was messed up. Those poor babies. Ivan, have you ever had an Egg McMuffin? What do you think that is? Okay, so if you've ever had a Denver omelet, you've had an unfertilized chicken egg. So it's all right. But to be fair, I do agree with you, Ivan, in the sense that she had a finite number, and I think I didn't count, but I would say that the child probably ate 10 in this episode.
At least that we saw, considering there were moments when we looked away. I mean, hey, here's the thing. At least the child didn't eat all of them.
Great point.
but
by the way, let me just throw in yet.
Yes.
I like that look she gave him at the end, and she clutched them very tight. Because she's like, oh, I know what you've been doing, child.
Yeah, but here's my problem with that sequence. So I was anxious every time the child ate an egg, yes. But also when Frog Lady first got on the Razor Crest, she did not keep her eggs with her. She let them sit in the back. What mother-to-be does that? That's my complaint, Frog Lady. Why did you not, I get it. At the end, she's clutching it, fine. Why was you get on a ship with someone you don't know, and you leave your eggs in the back unattended? And this is the last, this isn't even just eggs. These are the last of her species. And she's just gonna leave them somewhere unattended. Yeah, no. She's interesting. And this whole goal to get to Trask, that's another place that it's new to Star Wars, is this, planet Trask. But yeah, I don't know if I trust her either. So I agree with Zach. I think that there's another motive. I also don't think she's gonna, the whole point is that she allegedly has information about other Mandalorians. I highly doubt it. Why did she not pay up front? Like where, like how could they trust that she really knows? Motto met her that day
for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you trusted her. Oh, I met her 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Have you, Joe?
Exactly.
Are you a good judge of character? Like, how many people have you trusted the moment you met them?
I wouldn't trust now.
Yeah.
No, not the first minute.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't really know, like, outside of a finder's fee, I don't know what else could be in it for Motto, but
yeah,
finder's fee, fine. So yeah, we get that whole, the whole sequence with just Frog Lady acting strange, and then that whole sequence with the spiders. And yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. The spiders, if they are the same as the species in Rebels, they were 1,000 times scarier watching them on Mandalorian. I am not an arachnophobic person, but I may have just become one. Christian.
That's the side dish to the barbecue dragon. You know, the spider on a stick. Well, barbecue dragon and a raw egg.
The child might not oppose.
Yeah, it's true. It's more like you kind of start looking around the house and you're like, you know what, I think I might need the Orkin man to come back out because, I feel like there must be spiders somewhere. And I did think that they did a great job with kind of the slow rollout. And again, of course, it's the child's appetite is what really was their undoing. But I like that the little eggs started shaking. And then all of a sudden, and then of course we got the big one and there were two big ones. So I thought that all of the, just the reveal, I was very impressed that they were able to get away from them at all. I really thought his ship was going to get overtaken by them. But I think that, it was literally the creepy crawly factor that I think that they intended. I think it was very well executed. And it's just definitely a Star Wars thing we've seen before. But anytime you can see like the cockpit, like the glass and something like attaches itself and opens its big scary mouth and tries to eat you, it's job well done, message received, I guess,
Now, here's the thing is that it almost took it directly from Ghost with that too, because in the end of that Rebels sequence where they're literally running from a cave, they go on to the Ghost and everyone's inside, and literally the same thing happens where the mother spider jumps on the front, the front windshield and starts to kind of, open its mouth and claw its way in. But in the case of Ghost, they end up fighting for themselves. Whereas in Mandalorian, we got that sequence at the end where we see Trapper Wolf. He returns, and as well as Captain Carson Teba. And they're the people who kind of saved the day. I'm not sure how I felt about that. On the one hand, I was really happy to see them return. But it felt like Din got out of that a little too easily with just random help coming in. Joe, what did you think?
The two X-Wing fighters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they ran his plates and they knew who he was or something. It just seemed a little random.
Yeah, I liked that they came back. I'm just not sure. I would have preferred if Din was able to save his own ass first and then they showed up. Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it was definitely overly convenient that they stuck around. I feel like they would have been like, all right, well, he got away, and then they could have gone about their business. But I would have liked to have seen him really accomplish that all on his own. I mean, he was fairly close to figuring it out, but the way that they wrote it, he needed the assistance. But I always think it's cool to watch him. I've made this comparison, I think, as recently as last week. I mean, Mando, aka Din, he's essentially the Star Wars version of Frank Castle, the Punisher. He's surrounded by like 20 people with guns, and you blink and there's 20 dead people without guns, so I feel like he can get out of anything.
Yeah.
What was that? Joe? Sorry, we were talking at the same time.
That's okay. His suit's pretty cool. I got to get me one of those flamethrower.
Yeah, right. I know. I did love the thing with the jetpack, by the way.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, in the beginning, when he got ambushed, he gave the guy the jetpack, and he's like, "All right, yeah, there you go," and then he just sends it up in the air, and the guy falls off of it. I thought that was nice.
Just the way he gave it to him, you knew, oh, he's going to get this right back. He's going to push a button.
Yeah.
And
what I loved about that moment is that the child, after Din did this, the child looked over and gave him this like annoyed look, like, really,
Yeah.
Dad, did you have to do that? Did you have to kill him? Like, just let him go. Like, you know, take it and go. Like, I just thought it was very like, you know, one of those moments where it's one tiny little like facial reaction from the child, and you know, child is growing.
Yeah, it definitely set the tone for the episode, and Ivan mentioned earlier in the chat that it really reminds you that he is a baby, the child. There's a reason why we all call him Baby Yoda, because he looks like Yoda, but he's also a baby, and he'll give you those reactions, he'll give you those looks, and you can't tell him to not eat delicious eggs. So, yeah, I thought that we definitely got a lot of that in this episode, and I thought that that sort of that early beginning of the episode, the ambush sequence, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like this probably happens all the time on Tatooine. You know, just the impression you have of that planet, that it's like anybody comes driving by is probably they're gonna try and knock you over. You know.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because we always get this sense of like the gangsters of Tatooine and like, you know, the people that, you know, have lived a rough life, because that's just like even the mining collective, even after you know, the end of the war, and we still have people trying to enslave other people. We saw that with Cobb last episode. To me, like, I think that's what's so brilliant about this show is that they really get to, you know, dive in a little bit more so than what Dave Filoni started to do on Clone Wars in season 7, with kind of seeing like the underworld and the other side, and like, you know, people like more of the bounty hunter life. But speaking to that, kind of speaking to the opposite of that, in this episode, I think what also really like stuck out to me was this idea of, number one, hearing Din when he tells the two Resistance pilots, you know, may the Force be with you. And they say, and also with you. Apparently, that's the first time we've ever heard that said back, even though fans all the time. But just kind of speaking to that, we get this sense of like, okay, fine, Tatooine, we saw like the, you know, the rough around the edges kind of side to life. With the Resistant pilots, we're seeing how Mando is kind of, he doesn't trust the good guys either. We trust the good guys because we know, but he doesn't trust them. But this is, now we're starting to see him integrate into this world of the Resistance. And, you know, I don't see him becoming part of the Resistance, but at least kind of seeing him interacting a little bit more with them again.
No, I mean, you could see, you know, a story set in an earlier time, him working with the rebellion, but with it being the New Republic, I mean, it's just like, you know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's just like these are the bosses. These are the people that are looking to hassle you. You know, they want to have you, you know, they want you to check. They want you to ping them and all that. I did think it was interesting, you know, that he knows like, oh yeah, it's these guys. You basically wish them a Merry Christmas by saying, "May the Force be with you." I think it's interesting because that means that he has no concept what that phrase actually means. Because we saw in season 1, they're like, "What are Jedi?" You know, and so the idea of the Force, it's just like, I probably really do think it means like Merry Christmas. You know, it's like, this is just something that they say and we're trying to fit in, you know? So I thought that was an interesting tell. But yeah, I mean, he just, look, you don't make it in the world that he lives in if you trust anybody, especially not authority figures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, you know, with this, I mean, we've always, when we follow the Resistance, normally we're following it on their side. But here, from an outsider's perspective, we get to see why you wouldn't necessarily want to trust them, and what an average person's life, well, maybe not average because Din's not average, but maybe what, you know, a person who's not part of the Resistance or part of what was the Empire, someone who's just kind of caught in the middle, how it might appear to them. And, I see, like, I'm looking at some of Ivan's comments in the chat too, and I see, he's kind of backing up what you said, Christian, about obviously Din does not know what the Force even is, and Ivan said he doesn't have to know. And I think that the only thing that's kind of linking him to the Force is the child. And the fact that we know that the child is just naturally Force sensitive, and that he's looking like the whole goal right now is to find, Mandalorians and to potentially find more people like child. And so I'm curious what that's going to look like, which kind of brings me back to what I've been thinking, that I feel like that quest naturally could lead to Sabine and Ezra if they find him, and Ahsoka. It's just like all of these things that are up in the air right now that I'm really hoping happen. And just one more thing I want to say about that beginning sequence with when Mato was saying, I have someone, they're going to bring, like, she's going to bring you, to where you need to go. And I really was hoping it was going to be Sabine. I mean, but I was hoping, and I was just so super hopeful. Then I was like, oh no, not Sabine.
Just a quick little backtrack from Jeff Winstead. Nice to see Jeff in the chat. Was the duty kill with a jetpack a Jawa without the full robe? That is not something that I was thinking. It's a fascinating question because we've never really gotten a hint of what the Jawas look like outside of that getup that they have. So I wouldn't even begin to be able to answer that. It's a great idea, and I would need to look back at it and see, like, well, how far apart are his eyes? How big are they? I mean, it's literally all we know about them is what their eyes look like. But I thought it was definitely a fun question. And because we're talking about Ivan, he wants to know if we think that Baby Yoda will speak this season. I mean, I don't think he's going to speak because he is a baby. But when he does talk like Yoda, he will.
See, I don't think he's going to talk like Yoda. I think he's going to talk more like Din because that's who he's around. But also, I personally don't think we're going to get that because I don't think we're going to get him talking this season. I think that they're going to stick with more of what we had in the first season, which is the child being cute and not saying anything necessarily aside from like little squeaks.
Yeah.
I think what we will get from the child is more of his understanding of the Force. And we're going to get more of, him stepping into his role as a being who's Force sensitive. I think we need to. And I think that, Ivan, I know you said that Din doesn't necessarily need to know what the Force is, but I think that Din's connection to the child, and if he's going to keep raising the child, not that that's his plan, but if he's going to stick with the child, then I really think that means that there's going to be an intersection at some point of the world that we're used to with Jedis, or at least Force-sensitive beings, and the world that Din knows. So I think it is just going to happen whether Din needs to or not. It's part of the storyline because of Baby Yoda, and I'm saying Baby Yoda just for simplicity's sake, but just, it's part of the storyline just because of the being that is with Din.
Yeah, no. I think that, it's, I do like how interconnected the child, aka Baby Yoda, and it's funny because it's like, you can call him the child, you can call him Baby Yoda, you can call Din Mando, you can call him Din. Everybody's got extra names. But I like the, very much established at the beginning of last episode, wherever I go, he goes. Which I believe is the refrain from the commercial for the old My Buddy toy that you could have. So basically, the child is his My Buddy, and he will not let him go. Except for, when somebody holds a knife to his throat. Sometimes things are out of your control.
Yeah, the knife will do it. And Daniel Drew brought up bloodlines. Yeah, he says, and bloodline when Ben is still training with Luke as a kid. Yeah.
Daniel mentions this. Remember, the Resistance and the New Republic are separate. I'm not sure the Resistance exists yet because the First Order only started to get started in the Bloodline novel. Yeah, so when I'm talking about the Resistance, the Rebellion is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
the like the Return of the Jedi, episodes 4 through 6 Rebellion. I'm talking about that. That's what I referenced earlier. And the New Order, the First Order, I'm not thinking of at all. But I mean, the New Republic really does grow out of that. Case in point, our heroes from the original trilogy are part of the New Republic. They're sort of, I know it's expanded universe stuff now, but they were heavily involved in the formation of the New Republic. But the fact that the New Republic sends X-Wings out there, it's like, yeah, clearly the New Republic is the old rebellion. And I'm sure that Din has reasons to have, very strong feelings about these people,
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify, when I was saying resistance, I meant this. I didn't mean what we're getting with the First Order eventually. That has not happened yet. I kind of meant, the rebellion, the rebels, what we're getting with this new government. And Daniel Drew referenced bloodlines, and there's a lot that has to do with the Senate and Leia and how it relates to her relation to Darth Vader that comes out. So just in case anyone hasn't read that, it is an excellent book. Would highly recommend it. It is considered canon. But also just to quickly correct myself too, Ivan, when I referenced that he had said, I'll just read his comment. Rachel, I didn't say Mando doesn't need to know what the Force is. Daniel Drew did. I am so sorry. I misread that. But thank you for clarifying, Ivan. All right. So just, let's go around maybe. Joe, do you have any final thoughts about the episode?
It was, I just thought it was very well done, and I'm curious where it's going to go. And
Christian, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of nice little things in there. I mean, it was silly. I do love getting, some of the, just more stuff from the child. I mean, some of my favorite stuff from season 1 is when he was just standing there with the soup cup, watching the fight go on. I like when he's at least involved. I didn't like seeing a knife to his throat, but I like the other stuff, I like, when he's trying to get Mando's attention because, Frog Lady hopped off, and also obviously eating the eggs. So there were some little touches that I liked in this. But of course, when it was over, I'm like, all right, so nothing about Boba Fett. All right, I get it. But, as soon as you can get to that, please do.
Yeah, I mean, they drop it and then we hear nothing. So what I'm hoping, kind of like what they've done in the past, with season 1, sometimes we get these things that they don't do anything with it at first, and then all of a sudden it comes back. So I'm hoping that we either one of two things. We'll either end up back on Tatooine, or the reason they showed us Boba Fett is because they're making us aware by showing that angle that Boba Fett is aware of, Mando being around, so that maybe Boba Fett is now in pursuit of him, not necessarily to find him immediately, but he's kind of tracking him and kind of following his journey. And maybe he'll pop out at a later on another planet and reveal that he's kind of been like following Mando and the child and, Frog Lady. But all right. This was a really fun episode. I'm just glad we're getting new Star Wars content. So I'm never going to complain. And yeah, I'm excited for episode 3 and, see what chapter 11 brings. But Christian, until next week, where can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're watching this on the Black Cast YouTube channel, this is where you should subscribe. If you're on Twitch or Facebook, head over to BLADTCAST on YouTube. And if you subscribe, you will see earlier today we did the Star Trek Discovery show, which Rachel will be on with us sometimes when we do it regularly. But we will do that Fridays at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, I believe. And this was they had a great episode this week. I thought some really good character stuff on Discovery, and when Nikki and I were speaking, There may have been some tears referenced. So check out that show. And this is another one of those days where it worked out, where on the same day, in the same morning, I had a brand new Star Trek show to watch right after I watched a brand new Star Wars show. And I don't need anything else for my television. As many weeks as you can do that, please do.
I am there with you. This is like an amazing time of my life, just because Star Trek, and not just Star Trek Discovery, where we've had so much with Spock. And I mean, Christian, my favorite Star Trek is TOS Star Trek. So I'm here for it.
Can't go wrong with TOS. I mean, you can definitely go wrong with Voyager or Enterprise, but you can't go wrong with
even Picard on some level.
On some level, yeah. Picard, it's just more because of the love for TNG, where you just sort of have to be like, all right, it's like, it's the band that shouldn't have gone out on the reunion tour, but you're like, yeah, but I love it.
But you love it anyway.
Yeah.
And Joe, where can everyone find you?
You can find me anywhere you find Rachel, or you could find me on my Y&R page that I do with Rachel at Rachel's Hubby Joe.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Rachel Radner, or on Instagram at Rachel Radner Author. You can also find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman, which is more of where I post my, when AfterBuzz was still a thing, that was where I typically posted all my AfterBuzz and podcasting stuff, but not really so much anymore. Now it's more Rachel Radner. And if you are interested in romance books, you can find my romance novels on Amazon at Rachel Radner.
Just a quick shout out to Ivan, who says, thanks for doing the podcast. We miss AfterBuzz. It's a good reminder of those days. And I think it's fun that we still get to talk about these shows. And just because we brought it up earlier, just to tidy up Jeff Winstead's thought, he sounded like a Jawa. Amanda was quick to offer him any junk he wanted from the wrecked speeder bike. Goggles were wide set, but light in the eyes was burned out. I'm going to have to go back and look at this guy now. But I also feel like the way that Jawas are like scavengers and sort of like want everything, if you think about it, the Tusken Raiders are the same way. I think that's a very Tatooine thing. It's just like, what can I sell this junk for,
And it's funny too, because, Tusken Raiders, the fact that they also never take off the mask. We have, seen certain depictions of them in comics, but almost always it's with the mask on. So I wouldn't be surprised, going back to the comment about Jawas, I haven't seen that anywhere of anyone like officially announcing that.
Well,
but
Jeff's saying that it's a character named Scrapjaw from Force Awakens. So that's the same character. Okay. No, I really look how much homework I have to do now. Jeff, what are you doing? I have a screener of the Lego Star Wars Christmas special I want to watch. And yes, I'm dropping that because I want to sound important.
Yes, I've been waiting to catch that. I want to see some Star Wars time travel.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for this Christmas special. Unlike the other, OT Christmas special.
The original Christmas special has a very soft spot in my heart because of how terrible it is. The Boba Fett cartoon is cool, and I like the old commercials. That's what I'll say about the original.
Also, just as like a final thing here, Joe just pulled up Scrapjaw Motito. And Joe, what do you see here? It
looks like the guy that we saw. Since it's a family show, he didn't die. He was just taking a nap. He looks just like him.
It does. I mean, this is on the Star Wars fandom page if anyone wants to know. And it's literally under /wiki/Scrapjaw_Matito if you want to go check that out. But in any case, we will see you all next Friday. I think we might do either this time or an earlier time. I'm not sure.
We might do a little bit earlier, but we'll see. But just subscribe to the channel, and then you'll know. And obviously, follow us on social media, and we'll be sure to let you know before the show starts.
Awesome. Well, everyone have a wonderful week, and may the Force be with you.
Whatever that